Hello, everybody. I'm honored to welcome our colleague from Poland, Wojciech Daszkiewicz. He is currently on research visit at our institute under a fellowship from the Serbian government. Wojciech is associate professor at the John Paul II Catholic University of Lublin, affiliated with the Institute of Philosophy, where he holds a professional position in the chair of metaphysics, one of the very few chairs of metaphysics in all Europe today. In 2007, he was awarded the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, and in 2020, he obtained the degree of Habilitated Doctor of Philosophy. His research interests encompass the philosophy of culture, metaphysics, philosophical anthropology, as well as the history and theory of culture. He is author of numerous scholarly publications, including the monographs Being Human Culture, a study in philosophy of culture, and Intellectual Intuition in Physics. In his approach to the philosophical dimension of culture and more broadly to understanding the place of culture in contemporary society, Professor Daszkiewicz relies on classical sources of understanding man and his cultural production. His approach is not metaphysical, if by that one means understanding culture within the categories of classical or contemporary metaphysics. It is, however, metaphysical insofar as it does not lose sight on the fundamental importance of the existence of human being, nor the insight of Immanuel Kant that man is a being who has an inner need for metaphysics. Professor Daszkiewicz, please.
Thank you for introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for presence and for opportunity to speak here today. It's a great honor and pleasure for me to take part in this meeting and to share several reflections on the future, on the features and challenges of contemporary culture from Eastern European perspective. I mean from Polish perspective. So as you know, contemporary culture is shaped by profound social, political, and technological transformations, which influence not only institutions and public life, but also the way we understand the human person, identity, community, and values. The experience of Eastern Europe is particularly interesting in this context, since the region has undergone rapid historical and cultural changes over the last decades, remaining at the intersection of different traditions, memories, and models of modernity. I hope that today's reflection will contribute to a broader discussion on the condition of contemporary culture and the challenges facing our societies today. So let's start with etymological remarks. So the term culture, its original term, derives from the Latin, from colere, meaning cultivation, careful tending, processing, as well as worship and veneration. The term itself most likely first appeared in the title of Cato's treatise, De Agricultura. From the supine form, cultum, emerged the masculine noun, cultus, and feminine noun, cultura. These terms were semantically connected both with agricultural labor and with the worship of the gods, through which people sought blessing for the crops. The original meaning of culture was therefore closely tied to the agricultural sphere, as expressed in the term agricultura. The content of this expression encompasses the methodical cultivation in order to foster their growth, which was characteristic of the agrarian traditions of Roman society. In the Latin, however, the term cultura possessed a broader meaning than merely the cultivation of land, since it referred to various forms of care, cultivation, and refinement, both in literal and metaphorical sense. As can be seen, the historical understanding of the word culture was associated primarily with cultivation, elaboration, nurturing, or education. These expressions clearly indicate the dynamic and active character of the concept. Culture appears as a process, as a continuous activity that logically precedes and shapes all of its results. The term cultura, originally connected with the cultivation of things as something external to the acting subject, gradually evolved and came to signify an inner cultivation directed toward the perfection of human subject itself. Cicero was first to employ the expression cultura in metonymic sense, writing about the culture of the soul, realized through philosophy. In his readings, especially in the Tusculane Disputationes, he introduced the concept of cultura animi, or animi cultura. For Cicero, philosophy was the instrument through which human character could be developed and perfected, just as agriculture enables the growth and cultivation of plants. This metaphor of cultivation shifted the emphasis from the external world of nature to the inner world of the human being, suggesting that spiritual development requires similar care, systematic effort, and commitment. And this conception exerted the enormous influence on later reflections on culture, particularly within the humanistic tradition, where culture came to signify not only knowledge and education, but also the ethical and intellectual development of individuals. Expressions such cultura animi or cultus vitae denoted personal culture and self-perfection. Hence, Seneca, following Cicero, stated, "Oratio cultus animi est." That is, culture signifies not only upbringing and formation of the human being, but also the ornament of the human spirit. In the modern era, the meaning of the term culture, initially connected with activity itself, gradually began to refer to the results of that activity. Consequently, culture as the act of cultivation also came to denote the products of human activity. The term itself began to function independently without a qualifying modifier, and over time it came to refer the possession of techniques, tools, and practical skills that enable human beings to transform and overcome nature. Thus, the word culture came to signify the effects of rational human action, especially when these effects form a coherent whole. And today, culture may be understood either in its active and functional aspect, or in a sense detached from the very act of cultural creation, namely as objective products. From this semantic evolution and ambiguity of the concept arise the later reflections and debates concerning the definition of the term culture, as recognized by authors devoted to the cultural achievements of humanity, such as Friedrich Schiller, Immanuel Kant, and Wilhelm von Humboldt, as well as by historians and ethnologists who employed the term in their research. Today, we have to say that the product-oriented understanding of culture predominates over the activity-oriented understanding of culture. And the second, today culture is one of the most broad and difficult concepts to define in the history of the humanities. So, a distinguished British cultural theorist, Raymond Williams, once admitted in a radio interview, "I do not know how many times I have wished I had never heard that damned word." But as you know, contemporary culture strongly influences the way people understand themselves and their place in the world. It is not only a collection of neutral habits and products, but also a system of meanings, stories, and values that presents a certain vision of human person. This vision appears in education, the media, art, and social life, and it influences both personal decisions and collective behavior. In this way, culture shapes people's views, values, and participation in society. Therefore, thinking about the influence of culture on the human person is important for understanding the modern world. Now, I would like to say a few words about the features of contemporary culture. I have to admit that this is the subjective selection, which probably does not take into account all the important factors shaping contemporary culture. First, we can see a clear change from culture focused on production to one focused on consumption. In today's consumer culture, people often connect happiness and success with buying things, looking for new experiences, collecting symbols of status, and seeking short moments of pleasure. Consumption becomes not only a way of life, but also a main way of understanding human existence. This process is supported by the mega-trend of contemporary culture called globalization, which can be understood in three dimensions: economic, political, and cultural. A second process typical of contemporary culture is the weakening of the connection between culture and its traditional geographical and historical roots. This is the territorialization of cultures. A good example of this is the growing number of communities living outside their homeland. These communities keep their own identity, but at the same time take part in the life of the countries in which they live. As a result, culture becomes less connected to one particular place and becomes more individual. A third feature of culture is the growing diversity of lifestyles, beliefs, and worldviews. At the same time, beliefs are becoming more private and subjective. This process strongly influences the way people understand themselves and build their identity. In recent decades, the idea of identity has become very important. In the past, people usually built their identity on the stable cultural values, traditions, and social norms. Today, these stable foundations are becoming weaker. As a result, many people no longer have a clear and lasting sense of who they are. At the same time, we can observe the rise of what is sometimes called new tribalism. People create small identity groups based mainly on lifestyle, interest, emotions, or temporal beliefs, rather than on shared history or tradition. Relationships between people also become less stable and more emotional and temporal. Individuals may leave one group and join another when it better fits their current identity or way of life. In such small communities, People try to find belonging, safety, and emotional support, especially because the wider cultural community is becoming weaker. The fourth feature of contemporary culture is the aestheticization of life. This means that people increasingly treat their lives as a project that they can shape and design according to their own wishes. Instead of discovering a stable identity, the individual begins to create themselves through lifestyle, appearance, communication, and the use of cultural symbols. This process also influences everyday life. People pay more attention to the design of their homes, the object they use, and the way they spend their free time. Their surroundings become a kind of stage on which they present their identity to others. As a result, life increasingly takes the form of the spectacle or performance. Very often, being authentic becomes less important than creating an attractive image, a consistent style, or even provoking attention. A fifth feature of contemporary culture is a broad tolerance towards different people, beliefs, and ways of life. In stronger form, this tolerance becomes an open interest in diversity and difference. It means not only accepting different worldviews, religions, lifestyles, or identities, but also being ready for dialogue and trying to understand others without prejudice or quick judgment. This phenomenon is closely connected with the multiculturalism. Multiculturalism means not only that different cultures exist together in one society, but also that cultural, ethnic, religious, and linguistic differences are seen as something valuable and positive. In this perspective, the idea of one common and uniform culture is rejected. Instead, contemporary society accepts many different ways of living and many different forms of identity. Sixth feature of our culture is very strong influence of the internet and electronic media. Today, as you know, media do not only transmit information, they also shape the way people understand the world. Because communication is extremely fast and people receive huge amounts of information every day, media messages often become separated from real life. People increasingly live in the world of images, symbols, and media-created realities. As a result, it becomes more difficult to distinguish between what is real and what is artificially created. It is in this media environment that people build their identity and form their views about the world. And to conclude this overview, we should point to the internal lack of coherence in contemporary Western civilization. It is often compared to a mosaic or patchwork made of many different pieces. Culture no longer has one clear system of values and could unite society into a coherent whole. Contemporary societies consist of many different narratives, identities, and values that exist side by side. Very often, they do not share common foundations, and many even contradict one another or remain in conflict. So, the social order shaped by these processes, by the processes described above, leads many scholars to say that we increasingly live in a risk society, or even in society of uncertainty. Today, this feeling of uncertainty is becoming even stronger because of the worsening geopolitical situation in the world. Examples include the war in Ukraine and the conflict in the Middle East, together with the economic chaos and uncertainty caused by these events. The fast pace of modern life and the weakening of stable system of values often lead to confusion and a sense of existential insecurity. This situation was widely described by Ryszard Kapuściński, who compared the modern world to a madhouse in which the patients have revolted, the fire has broken out, and the basement has flooded, and the situation changes every 5 minutes. This metaphor clearly shows the atmosphere of instability in contemporary societies. In such conditions, people are forced to make important life decisions without clear moral or social points of reference. Let us now move to a reflection on the philosophical foundation of contemporary culture. In this perspective, the world is often understood in a dualistic way. On the one hand, there is the real and authentic world, and on the other hand, there is the ordinary world of everyday life, which is sometimes treated as only an appearance or an illusion. According to this view, human happiness is possible only when a person moves beyond this apparent reality and seeks a deeper and more authentic form of existence. An important point here is that the true reality is connected with movement, change, uncertainty, and constant transformation. In contrast to the ordinary world, rational, stable, and ordered is often seen as less authentic or even superficial. From this comes an important conclusion. If a person wants to live authentically, they should not seek permanent stability and fixed order, but rather openness to change and transformation. In this perspective, the truly authentic person is an emancipated individual, someone free from traditional limitations and fixed structures. In this perspective, culture increasingly operates through mechanics of the market and consumption. Zygmunt Bauman described contemporary society as a consumer society, in which individuals are encouraged not only to consume products, but also to constantly shape and redesign their identities. People are expected to remain flexible, attractive, and open to continuous change. As a result, identity itself becomes something temporary and unstable, built through choices of lifestyle, media content, fashion, and symbolic affiliation. In this way, culture shapes social behavior indirectly. Media, popular culture, and consumer brands create models of success, happiness, and self-fulfillment that individuals willingly imitate. The effectiveness of this influence lies precisely in the fact that it appears as free choice, while in reality, these choices are often structured by broader economic and cultural mechanisms. As a result, contemporary culture is based less on stability and lasting values and more on constant change and search for novelty. Unlike earlier views of social development, where change was supposed to lead to a better or more ordered society, contemporary culture treats change itself as a value. What matters is not permanence, but continuous movement, flexibility, and adaptation. So, today, the symbolic prestige is increasingly connected with what sociologists call cultural omnivoreness. This means the ability to move easily between different cultural environments, styles, and forms of expression, without becoming strongly attached to any one of them. Contemporary elites are therefore not simply people who possess superior knowledge or better taste. Rather, they are those who can function in many different cultural contexts, understand different cultural codes, and adapt to various social situations. Behind this situation, there is often a deeper sense of uncertainty and value confusion. In the past, for example, artists and cultural creators were usually seen as people fulfilling important social or moral functions. But today, culture is connected with urban entertainment, prestige, and commercial success. Because of this, unimportant questions appears. According to what criteria should contemporary art and culture be evaluated? Today, cultural value is often measured mainly through visibility or popularity. What becomes important is not necessarily the content award, but how widely it is recognized, discussed, and promoted in media. This situation was ironically described by Marshall McLuhan, who stated that art is anything you can get away with. His remark captures the idea that contemporary culture, in contemporary culture, the boundaries of art are increasingly fluid and difficult to define. A similar attitude can be seen in the statement of Damien Hirst, who after receiving the Turner Prize jokingly said, "It's amazing what you can do with E in art at A level, a twisted imagination, and chainsaw." Although provocative, this statement reflects an important feature of contemporary culture: the growing blurring of boundaries between artistic creativity, provocation, media attention, and commercial success. Contemporary culture differs from its classical understanding. Traditionally, culture was seen as a process of shaping the human person, developing character, sensitivity, knowledge, and moral attitudes. Today, however, culture is more often understood as a space of individual choice, self-expression, and personal freedom. At the same time, contemporary culture is no longer focused mainly on satisfying existing human needs. Instead, it constantly creates new desires and expectations. Modern media and consumer culture stimulate people to seek ever new experiences, products, and forms of self-expression. Desires quickly change and are replaced by new ones, creating a continuous cycle of consumption. This mechanism was well described by George Steiner, who observed that contemporary culture and mass media aim at producing strong but short-lived reactions. What matters is immediate impact, fast consumption, and rapid replacement by something. And the last part, let's talk about the classical understanding of culture. Culture is closely connected with fundamental questions about human life. The key issue is not only how people function in society, but what allows them to develop fully as human beings. This requires reflection on human nature, freedom, truth, responsibility, and the meaning of existence. In the classical philosophical tradition, the human being is understood as a person. A person is not merely a biological organism or a social rule, but a being capable of reason, freedom, love, morals, responsibility, and transcendence. Unlike animals, human beings are not born fully prepared for life. They must gradually develop themselves, discover their nature, and shape their lives according to the meaningful goals and values. And culture plays an essential role in this process. In the classical understanding, culture is not only entertainment or consumption, but a space in which human beings develop intellectually, morally, socially, and spiritually. It should help people become more fully human and create a shared space of true dialogue and responsibility. In classical tradition, four main areas of culture are distinguished: religion, morality, art, and science. These areas are different from one another, but all of them are connected in human life and express different forms of human activity. If we consider religion and morality, we can say that they are primarily connected with the human person. Religion concerns the relationship between the human being and God. Its ultimate goal is holiness and salvation. Morality, in turn, concerns human actions and relationships with other people. It is based on the idea that the human person is free and responsible. The aim of morality is the realization of moral good or becoming a good person. Science and art function somewhat differently. They direct focus in not mainly on persons, but on reality and the world itself. Science seeks truth and understanding. Its purpose is to explain reality, but by discovering causes, relationships, and the laws that govern the world. In this sense, science helps human beings understand the structure and order of reality. Art is also connected with knowledge, but above all with creativity. Through art and creative activity, human beings transform nature and produce new things. These creations may have practical value, such as tools and useful objects, or aesthetical value, as in works of art. Integral development of culture requires the harmonious presence of science, morality, art, and religion. Only when all these dimensions are present together can we speak about the mature or developed culture. This does not mean that there should be one universal culture for all societies. Different cultures may exist and develop in different ways. However, cultures are not completely beyond evaluation. Their value depends on whether they support the genuine development of the human person and help people live meaningful and responsible lives. So the question of culture is, in the deepest sense, a question about the human person, about what truly actualizes human potentialities and enables a person not merely to function, but to live an increasingly human way. This context presupposes the necessity to referring to a specific theory of being, theory of nature, and theory of human person. So culture should not be understood primarily as a sum of material goods produced by society or the level of their consumption. Rather, its essence lies in development of spiritual capacities of human person, capacities that enable human beings to know truth and to act rightly. So, the last slide. The true measure of culture is therefore the growth of the human personality, expressed above all in the ability to seek and recognize truth, as well as in what can be called the art of love. Of course, culture is enriched by those who create intellectual, artistic, and material goods, and by those who are able to use them properly. Yet, all forms of cultural production and consumption remain secondary to what the ancients describes as cultus animi, the cultivation of the human soul. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for this informative and pretty concise lecture. And now, if are there any questions? Yeah, please.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Petra. I work here at the Center for Legal Research. And firstly, thank you for your great lecture. I was really intrigued by your point on the role of change in the modern society and culture. And I was wondering, due to the consumerism and the rapid changes, firstly in the way that we live, technological development and cultural change, I was wondering, in your opinion, in the future, or maybe even today, do you think there will be like a broad sense or notion of culture, or will we be able to only discuss like cultural changes? So do you believe that there will be like a broad notion of culture due to the rapid changes that that in the culture, or if there only will be like short-term cultural trends?
I don't know if I could understand you, but I will try to answer. As I said, the contemporary culture, one of the big mega trends is the conception of change of societies. And this conception of changing of societies is connected with the mega trends of our contemporary culture called globalization. And of course, we have the situation that on the one hand, we have a conception or trying to create one global culture, and on the other hand, we have the process, the globalization. Globalization is a contradict process or process globalization when the small cultures, I mean not only national cultures but subcultures too, want to be present in the big entertainment stage. And I think it's now, this is the special kind of fighting between globalization and localization. And today we have the process. Donald Trump said that there is the end of process of globalization. And United States started this process, but we don't know what will be the future. So I think that globalization has its negative effects. The negative effects is that national culture are becoming weaker, and this is not good situation for the national culture. But I think in the future we will observe the return to this national culture because identity we created in culture on the base of our national cultures, not global culture. This is the rightly context of our developing, I mean, moral side, the intellectual side, and it's very important. But I don't know what will be in the future. I observe the special kind of fight between the globalization and localization. Yeah.
Hello. My name is Alexander. I'm also from the Center of Legal Research. I wanted to ask you, just you probably know about some kind of rival concept of the globalization. For example, the famous Russian philosopher Alexander Dugin is now promoting the concept of some kind of multiverse civilization concept. He thinks that the age of nation state is over, you can say, in a way, but the future will be some kind of, it's also the Huntington famous thesis. There will be a couple of global areas, you can say. For example, China is one civilization area, India is another, Western Europe, the United States, Russia also, and Orthodox, you can say that. So do you think in that way, for example, Poland is interesting. Do you think or Serbia, we are in the middle somewhere, you can say, we are not east, not, but where will be the place, for example, for Poland or Serbia in that kind of concept of some kind of civilizational conflict future? If you understand what I wanted to ask, yes.
Thank you for this question. You introduced the concept of civilization in our debate. Yeah, I know the conception of civilization somewhere of Huntington, and I don't know very well Dugin, but in Poland we have the theories of civilization, Felix Koneczny. And Felix Koneczny said the same, most like the same, that Samuel Huntington. The idea is that now we have we are in the changing process that leads to change the geopolitical situation. In a new geopolitical situation, we will have the multilateral global order based on the main civilizations of the world. And if this conception is true, now we have a global order who is created between, on the one hand, United States. United States are a center of Western civilization. And on the other hand, we have the China, very big civilization. This is one nation and one civilization in itself, yeah? So we have the Western civilization, Chinese civilization, Indian civilization, and what about Russia? Russia is different, another different civilization. And now we are in the process of shaping a new world order. In this conception, the Poland lays on the boundaries between two great civilizations. On the one hand, we are participating in the Western civilization, but on the other hand, we have the Ukraine. Half Ukraine is under influence Western civilization, and second half is under influence Russian civilization. And this is the problem, because we have tensions between this civilization. This is a very interesting conception. So we are, Poland, we are in the east flank of Western civilization. And what about Serbia? What kind of civilization we have in Serbia? It's not simple to answer on this question. It depends. Yeah. On the other hand, if we treat conceptions of Samuel Huntington as true, the Serbia is under influence Orthodox civilization. This is the same civilization than in the case of Russia. But as you know, Serbia was under influence the Ottoman civilization too. So we have the different situation here. So the Serbia and Poland has in the same situation. This is my answer on this question.
Thank you very much. I have two questions. First, how do you explain term and movement against so-called cultural appropriation? first one. And the second, what's the influence of capitalist framework on main features of contemporary culture? Because you have one example, you have shift from the view of the success of movie from the member of people who saw it to how much money it earned. So it seems to me that many features of modern contemporary culture could be explained from this point of view, framework, capitalist framework and capitalist causes.
Thank you for these two questions. If we consider the influence of capitalism on contemporary cultures, I have to say that this influence is very strong. But it is not simple to clear it, because I would like to indicate that the northeast of Europe was under influence capitalism, but it is not at all. North Europe, in his history, was under influence the special kind of religion. I mean Protestant religion. And if you know, in the Protestant religion, capitalism has a special function, because people want to get the salvation, and capitalism helps them to take this stage. So these processes are connected. Yeah. But if we consider the contemporary culture, the capitalism has a good connection with the consumer culture, because we have very many goods we can buy, and this is the special kind of process of our contemporary culture. But if we consider the first question, I don't know if I could understand you.
The rejection or defense of some culture from taking its features in another culture now.
Mm.
If you have some hair like black man, so it is cultural appropriation.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it is senseless.
Okay, I have to indicate a very important problem, because this problem is connected with the multiculturalism. The problem with multiculturalism is that there is difference between the stage of culture and the stage of civilization. For example, in Europe, the most countries is under influence Western civilization, and if we have migration of people in this context, this is not a problem. The problem is when we have the migration between not culture but different civilizations. Because, for example, Konechny said, this is not possible to be civilized on two ways. And this is my answer.
Yeah, please.
Just a quick comment on the last sentence. Yeah, I think that will become a problem in Serbia and this part of Europe, as we have a lot of immigrants who are coming to work here, and they are bringing their culture, and they are from different civilizations. So people who are coming from Sri Lanka probably have some different cultural background than people living here. So I think that is the question for the future that we'll face in this part.
Thank you. And this is another problem, because we have, of course, multiculturalism. The often this multiculturalism is understood as existing very different culture in one space. For example, the big city. For example, in London, in New York. But there is the second understanding of multiculturalism, which is the political project. This political project is some kind of utopia, because this project wanted to create the ideal space for many different cultures with different civilizations. And so now in Europe, we have the very big problems connected with it.
Thank you. So, thank you for your lecture. Thank you for your answers. And I hope we will see you again on some other lecture too. Thank you very much.
Thank you too. Thank you for your presence.